For those of you who don't know, I'm actually a director and producer. Just 1 second. Hey, can we have the slides up?
Yes, of course.
I think it's important for you guys to see the slides. Here we go. So I'm a director and producer, and I'm going to talk about how I've changed the game in my career and how virtual production, real time, has really changed the paradigm in the way I'm able to do my job and the way other people are able to do their job. So I'm going to use my projects as an example of this. So it all started in 2019 when I decided that I needed to do previs. I needed to find a way of figuring out what my movie is going to look like without spending a huge amount of money and hiring other studios, because we're an independent company. And there's this thing called Unreal Engine that I just downloaded for free on my MacBook Air, by the way. And I was pretty much very quickly able, over a weekend, to block shots out. Now, I've worked in previs in my career in visual effects, and previs was very, very rough, very blocky. But right here, I was able to do all these things myself on my laptop. So it really then made me think, well, when I go to Hollywood and I pitch to studios, you always have to create a pitch deck, right? You create a book of 50 pages of images to say what my movie is going to look like, and you take clips from other films to show what it's going to be like. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to change it up a bit. So I decided I'm going to put together a little short animated film, which was this, and take it to Los Angeles and just show them what the tone of the film was going to be like. And believe me, it's so much easier to show them something like this without saying anything, because right now they can see this and go, oh, it's a space movie, it's zero-G, there's tension, there's horror, and there's character drama. We understand what it is. So a meeting that would usually take hours or several days of going back and forth, within a few minutes, they understood what the concept was. But then, just as we were going into production, because we had cast the film already, we had got most of our finance in place, ready to shoot, COVID kicked in. And it was a problem for us, because we were ready. This was going to be my third feature, bigger budgets, bigger cast and everything, and that got put on hold. But I didn't want to stop telling stories. I didn't want to stop making projects. I'm not going to let COVID stop me from doing what I've always wanted to do since I was 12 years old, which is make movies. So I thought, well, I had so much fun making a rough version of the movie in Unreal. Why don't I just do it for real? Why don't I just make an animated film in Unreal? But no one was doing that, and no one had tested that. So I was very lucky to convince a comic book company who reached out to me to pretty much do a proof of concept. And I thought it was important to test it on an actual project and not do a demo. So this is a project called Battlesuit, which you can watch on my website. And it was the first time me and my team of 3 people were able to put this together in, 3 months and release it online. And it really rethinks the way you make content. Not just the way we made it, but the way it was promoted. Websites like firstshowing.net, Unreal, NVIDIA, they all promoted it. And all of a sudden, we were back in the filmmaking game, but we're making an animated film. That's insane. So then I got asked by a games company called Funcom to pitch on a project. Now, do you remember what I said earlier? Most people, when you pitch on projects, you have a pitch deck. You go in and do your big pitch, right? I didn't want to do any of that. They sent me a copy of the video game. I put the video game in my PlayStation, and guess what was the first logo I saw? Made in Unreal Engine. So I'm like, ooh. So I rang up the game company and said, could you give me all of your assets, all of your game assets? I mean, they gave me funny looks at first, but then they gave it to me. And I plugged it in, me and my team plugged it in, and we were able to do this. So what you're seeing there is all game assets, but done in a cinematic way. So I was able to take my live action experience, game assets, put it together and pitch it. And of course, I won the job. We're in pre-production on the project. We're going to production later this year. Because we didn't do any pitch deck, no verbal pitch, it was like, this is the movie. So already, I've got the power in my fingertips to command for budgets just by showing what the movie is going to be like. So you know what? I said, let's really set up a company from the ground up. So we set up a company October 2020. We built a mini studio, and the type of people we hired were all generalists. They were not the type of people you would get in typical visual effects companies or animation companies. A very small team. And you can see here we have programmers, we have motion capture artists, we have animators, we have pipeline guys. Doesn't feel like an animation company. It feels like a tech company, right? But with that small team, and then we grew afterwards, we decided to build our pipeline. And our pipeline, you can see in the middle, Unreal Engine right in the center. Everything else pipes in. So what I mean from that is, when I bring artists to come and work on the projects, I don't care what software they use. I don't care if they use Cinema 4D, Blender. I don't care. As long as they give me the final result plugged into Unreal, that's all I care. That opens the doors for recruitment. It opens the doors to me accessing talent based on their work, not based on their location, and not based on the software they used. So from 2021 to mid-2022, hopefully July we finish it, we went ahead and made our animated feature film. 90 minutes long, 4K HDR deliverable, because people like Netflix and Apple love that. Final pixels. For those of you who don't know what final pixel is, that means everything straight out the engine. What you see in the game goes print into the film. There's no post-processing, there's no compositing, no visual effects. Now that's a big deal. So now I'm going to talk about how we pulled that off. Yeah, I think that's what you guys want to know, right? And the first thing I had to do, forget technology for a moment, right? First thing I had to do was change my mindset as a director. I'm so used as a director pointing at things, pointing at screens, and telling people what to do. But when you're making, whether it's a television show or a feature film, whatever you're doing in real time, the job as a director is upgraded, it's changed a lot. You're very much hands-on. And that is important to remember, that directors all want control. They wish they could do something, but they have to communicate it. With real time, I was able to pretty much put my fingerprint on every single shot. And how did I do that? Let me show you. Well, first off, I didn't do that, that's for sure. This is what a typical day directing in Unreal Engine looks like. Literally, I bring my characters in the shot. My artists create the amazing characters. My artists create the environments. And at the bottom here, anyone that's done editing will understand this is like an editorial timeline. But I can move the camera around where I want. I can change the animation. I can put explosions. I can change how much bullets are fired, how much muzzle flash is fired. I can change at which moment, which facial expression happen. I can do all of that literally at a flick of a button, all in sequencer in real time. And guess what? I may have ideas that sound great on paper, but they may not necessarily look cool when you test it. And that's okay. That's the whole idea of filmmaking. It's experimental. But the problem I found is when I worked on conventional animated films, even live action, I didn't have the luxury to experiment. I didn't have the luxury, I couldn't afford to make mistakes creatively, conceptually. I found in this way of working, I can find the voice of the film, which is very important if you speak to any filmmaker. But to do this, you can't just download Unreal and say, hey, I have control. No, there's a bit of work involved. And this is where you bring important, talented people. And they help you build the tools inside of Unreal. So I had a lot of conversations with my team and said, I want to be able to drive the car, like that car chase scene you saw in the clip. I want to be able to change the eye line. I want to be able to, in the middle of the night, wake up and go, hey, I've got this really cool idea. I want to change. I need tools to do that, because I'm not a technical person, right? And I don't want to be thinking about the technicalities. So earlier on, this is to producers, by the way, notes to them, invest time in building the tools and the rigs. Whether it takes 2 months, it doesn't matter, but it will save so much more time. So here's an example of like one of the rigs that Andrea, my head of CG, built me. That I can open the door, I can move as I move the steering wheel, the hands move automatically. Now, any animators sitting here thinking, well, yeah, we've had this for decades. We've had this in Maya, Blender. But have you ever had a director go in the shot and literally block out the shot for the first time? Very, very rare, right? I mean, of course, there are directors that do that, of course. But here, literally anyone that's not technical can do this. Here's another example. attaching guns or hammers or accessories. Andrea created a tool for me where I literally just drag and drop things and say, set to this hand. I can do this in a matter of seconds. Allows me as a director to do my job and really tell that story. Even write things to like hair simulation. You know, I didn't want to spend time simulating hair. I ain't got time for that. So, or the budget for it. So we built a bunch of presets of hair movement, and then I can mix them. You know, like you do with editing, you take footage and you blend them together. I can do that with animation data. It's called motion mixing. I can do that at my fingertips. Now, bear in mind, everything I do is always the first version. Then my artist can go in and make it better. But that's the thing, isn't it? I'm not going backwards and forwards and telling artists what I want. I'm showing them what I want. Here's another example of dailies. We're all familiar with dailies, right? Where you spend an hour, 2 hours in the room going through each shot, and you're making notes. And a coordinator or an assistant will write all the notes and then hand them out to the artist, and then the artist go and do the notes, give them back to the director to make changes. We don't do this here. What we're doing here is, imagine this is a shared Zoom screen. My artist is in Italy, another animator is in New Zealand, I'm in London, I'm giving notes, and they're making the changes in real time. So by the time I finish my dailies, the changes have been addressed. Now, of course, if there's something like I have to redo the character, then obviously that's a different thing. But usually things like eye line or positions of hands, we can address them on the fly. So productivity is increased massively. But of course, you can't do everything on a computer, right? We need actors. So I was very lucky to be able to use motion capture. Now again, motion capture used to be a very, very expensive thing. You know, only the likes of James Cameron and Robert Zemeckis would be doing this. Now you can buy things like the Xen suit, or there's a tons of other ones. And this is a post studio, by the way. This is not even a motion capture studio. But you can see here, I can direct the actors, see the performance on the screen. At the end of the day, I take the hard drive back home, plug it in, retarget my data onto the characters, which takes like a few hours, and I have data the next day to work with. I mean, already, that's changed the game for me as a filmmaker, because now I'm not afraid of the format for animation. But of course, in the world of pandemic, I can't work with every single artist that I want to work. Remember I said originally, I want to work with talent based on their talent, not based on their location. So Gabriella, this amazing virtual production artist in Florida, I was able to direct her via Zoom. So she would set her room up based on the mock-ups I would give her. And this is her in Florida, and I'm giving her direction via Zoom. By the time we finish, the next morning in my Dropbox, I have all the animation ready for me, just drag and drop. Mind blowing, right? And this is an example of what my Zoom screen looks like. You have the script broken down, you have some layout, and this is a typical Zoom screen. This is the future directed remotely, guys. But what if the actors are not experienced in motion capture? Not every actor is comfortable about putting on a motion capture suit. And I notice one thing. Whenever I give an actor that's not, experienced with motion capture, they act differently. They're like, oh, do I have to stand in a certain way? Do I need to look in a certain way? And that's bad, because I want the performance. So I started to look into markerless capture technology. So the woman there, Nolene, she's a theater actress. She is not familiar with technology. She's a bit of a technophobe. But she wanted to perform as you would. And I didn't tell her we were doing motion capture. I just put 6 GoPro cameras around the room. So GoPro cameras are tiny cameras, right? The action cameras. And then once we did that, we then feed the camera data into machine learning. That's right, AI Skynet level thing here now. And we're able to feed the footage into the machine learning. The machine learning triangulates the room and builds a skeleton. Let me just, oops. Let me show you here. There we go. Hey. And then what I do is I export all of that into Unreal. And this is raw. This is not being cleaned up. But that's the data. And obviously, I have to clean up the hands and the wrists. But within 24 hours, I have markerless motion capture in Unreal. OK, let's start talking tech. Let's start going back to the psychology of filmmaking, because I think it's very important. I wanted to change the game with the way I communicate to my team. Communication is probably the most important job for a director. It's not the technicalities, it's the psychology. It's how you communicate. And for the love of God, I hate emails. I hate trawling through emails to find a note I gave someone. And I didn't want to take so long explaining a simple thing like a facial expression. I needed to give clear and concise creative direction, but I wanted it to be done in a collaborative way. I wanted my artist to feed back to me. So we use this thing called iClone. Very affordable software, anyone can download and buy it. And this is what a typical idea session looks like. We'll bring the character in, and I'll go through various expressions to try and communicate what I want. And then the artist would make note of that, most likely save the file, and then they can go off and animate it. But this is such a really great way of me finding the character performance, but more importantly, collaborating my team, because then my team could jump into the Zoom session, take control, and they start experimenting. Do you mean like this has, or do you mean a bit like that? That sped things up massively, like hugely. Here's another example of my friend Alex Kong in Montreal.
Yes.
It's having way too much fun, obviously. But he's got a camera where I could see the performance and the character, and I can give him direction in the headset, all in real time. Here's more example here where I'm able to move things in real time again. I mean, you get the idea. Even things like hand gestures, right? Like if I want to change a hand gesture, I don't have to go back to motion capture to do that. I can just do that just by moving the mouse around. Okay, so that's the movie. But now I'm really going to up the ante here. We decided, because we're a sucker for pain, we decided to make a video game simultaneously with the animated film. Whoops, let's put that down. Now you're thinking, what? Are you guys not busy enough? Like, you guys not sleep? Here's what happened. One weekend, I wanted to control the car just to test the idea in real time. And I very quickly realized that this could be a game. And guess what? We're using a game engine already. So why not prototype the game very quickly? We're in the engine already. So all of the assets that we built, all of the environments that we built, these are all from the movie. The thing that we didn't build was the code. So we spent time coding. But from a storyteller's point of view, it meant all of the ideas I had for a 90-minute movie, which is only so much you can fit, especially a multiverse movie, I can put it in the game. So now, creatively, I can tell my story in a much wider way. From a business point of view, I have an increased vertical. I have the movie. I have the video game. I can create an app experience. I can literally do whatever I want because all the assets are already built. You build it once, you reuse it multiple times. There's a question of sustainability maybe, right? And because of that, we're able to now announce that we're going to be releasing the demo of the game via Steam at the end of June. Now, if you used to ask me last year what I'm up to, I'd be saying, oh God, I'm making an animated film. Now I'm saying I'm making an animated film and a video game, right? But how do we evolve the business of storytelling further than animated films and video games? Yeah, it's cool that I'm making a video game and an animated film, yeah. But I'm not the only one, right? So I wanted to take it further. How do we increase our business? As an independent creative company, as artists, we want to keep telling stories. But you also want to reach your audience as much as possible and give them enriched experience. The Metaverse. Yes, we've heard about the Metaverse every single day on our LinkedIn profiles and our social media. Of course we have. But what does it mean to a creative like me, for example? Well, we never planned on doing projects for the Metaverse. I mean, we were busy already making a video game and a movie, right? But this company called X-Mana, which is an esports company, reached out to us and said, hey, we'd love for you to do a concept trailer for us, direct a concept trailer as a production company to visualize our metaverse. And we're like, okay, sure. So it became like an animated project, right? And I'm going to show you this animated project now. If there was sound. Oh, there is sound. You guys got sound? Should be. My fault. This is all done in Unreal as well, by the way, in real time. So that was the commercial that we created. Pretty much all what you see all day is real time, nothing's post-processed. And this was basically, it wowed them. They managed to raise a shit ton of funding for their metaverse, which was amazing. And we got to tell a story to visualize their metaverse. But then, like with most potential clients, they come up to you and go, we love what you did. We've got 10 more videos. We've got this other stuff we want to show. We want to show retail commerce. We want to show gamification. We want to show all of that stuff. And it struck me. I'm like, you're a Web3 company, but you're pitching in a Web 2 way. Web 2 being video, images, pitch decks. Why don't you pitch it in a Web3 way, an immersive, interactive way? And they're like, how much is that going to cost? I'm like, let's not talk about the cost. Let's talk about why we're doing it. First off, that entire thing was done in a game engine. So why don't we just take those assets, put it in a game like we did with Rift, and prototype the metaverse, your metaverse. Let's not create videos. Let's prototype it and feel it rather than watch it. That's the whole idea of Web3, right? And of course, they're like, okay, cool. And we very quickly were able to take, that's the character from the trailer, and we're able to create, these are all of the things they wanted to show, but this is me with an Xbox controller. And then what we did was, we put it on a server, and we use something called pixel streaming, which means I just send them a link to this. On their phone and on their iPad, they can move around the prototype of the metaverse. We're not rendering videos. We're not rendering pitch decks or anything like that. So I kind of literally changed the game on how we pitch metaverse projects by actually becoming more immersive, more interactive, but most importantly, imagination. It's the 3 eyes, right, that everyone always strives to get right in projects. And I feel like when you're working on projects like this, not only am I telling a story, I'm giving that into the hands of the user to experience the story. So now as a company, we're making metaverse storylines in projects. But let's take it further, because why not, right? What about user-generated content? Here's me creating content to give to people, to experience. But wouldn't it be cool if we created a sandbox and handed that to the audience to create their own content based on the world that I created? Isn't that a new way of telling stories by putting it in hands. I've seen on YouTube people recut films and create their own remix version of a movie. Some of them are really good, by the way, better than the original. I'm not going to say what film. But the point is, that is the future of audiences. That is the future of content saturation. People want control. So one of the projects we got involved in recently was a project called Uppercut by a company called Jump Cut. Now, I'm going to say these 3 letters. Some of you are going to probably cringe, like I did. NFTs. Ooh, uh-oh. Yes, divided. But here's the thing. NFTs have a really bad rep because of blockchain and so on. We're not interested in any of that stuff. We don't touch crypto. I don't want to touch crypto. I'm an artist. I want to tell stories. So how does NFTs help me as a storyteller tell stories? It's something called utility NFTs. What that means is the output of whatever I do turns into an animated series, turns into a video game, 3D character avatars, which I give to the audience to do their own thing, and more utilities. And what we did was we created a tool set inside of Unreal. And you'll not notice, by the way, I've stayed in Unreal for every single one of those projects, but I'm doing something different. I'm pushing the boundaries as far as I can. Right here, we're doing a customized character. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing new. We've been doing that in Fortnite. We've been doing that in World of Warcraft. So what? But here's the thing what we're doing. We're going to release that like a pixel streaming app for people and audiences to customize their own character, put it in their own dojo, create their own experiences, and let them upload that. That is amazing because I get to set the world, set the characters, but now give it to the audience to tell the story they want to tell on those characters. That is user-generated content. But most importantly, we're getting the community involved during the process. Who remembers a website called Scriptorama? There's a website called Scriptorama where you can download scripts. I used to read it when I was in college. Download the script of Aliens or Terminator 2. You're like, oh my God, this is how scripts are made. And there are also scripts on there that never got made. One of them was James Cameron's version of Spider-Man. How cool would that movie have been, right? Now imagine today if that was a project that was driven by community where it's based on voting. I'm pretty sure that movie would have been made, or at least a proof of concept would have been made. And that's what we're doing here. We're creating these characters, but we're putting it on a Discord, and we're letting the fans and the followers chip in, do a poll, make comments. I mean, obviously, we can't take on comments too much, but we do a poll, and it gives them incentive to be part of the project. It gives them a sense of ownership. Now, we all know NFT is about ownership, but I'm talking about ownership in the content and more. So, since adopting the real-time approach, since when? 2019? We're producing animated feature films. We're game developers now. We're creating a metaverse. We're disruptors. We're storytellers. We're HaZimation. And that, my friends, is how we changed the game for storytelling. But there are also tons of other creatives also changing the game. And I've had the pleasure as program chair to curate this year's FMX, where I get to bring on really amazing speakers, and each of them have changed the way they've changed their businesses, the way they tell stories, the way they create, the way they use in visual effects and virtual production. Each of them have changed their own way and changed the game in their own way. And I implore each one of you to try and make time to see some of them, or at least watch it online. And now you get to ask me anything you want. So I'm an open book, by the way, guys. So you can literally ask me anything, but do not ask me the budget of the movie, because I cannot tell you that. There we go.
It's amazing seeing your journey.
Thank you.
Can you talk about how it all started? How did you get into visual effects or animation, and when was that?
Well, that could be a long thing. So the short answer would be, I didn't go to film school. I wanted to go into film school, but we couldn't. I couldn't afford it. My parents couldn't afford it. So I did media communications at university, and I made a video game level back in like '97, like PlayStation 1 days. Kind of shows my age a bit. And then from there, I was making animated films in video games. But here's the thing. We're working in low polygon. So we have just small textures that we would tile, very low poly models that we had to make look good to work on a PlayStation, which has X amount of kilobytes of memory. Today, we don't have that worry. But because of that, I went into visual effects later on. And then through there, while working as a VFX supervisor on set, I worked with some of the best directors in the world. I also worked with some of the not so best directors in the world. And you learn from both of them. And that became my film school. I also learned how to navigate the Hollywood system. I always navigated the scheduling, the budgeting, and financing. All of that became knowledge. So visual effects is pretty much my film school, and that's how I got into it. Oh, there's one there.
Yes, thank you so much for your talk. It's really cool to hear about all the easy access and how easy it seemed to be for you. I would be very interesting to hear or to learn about some of the difficulties and your biggest challenges with or at least some of these projects.
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, the challenges were never technical. Funny, right? It wasn't. It was getting the right people to join the projects. It's very hard to find good Unreal Engine artists. They're what you consider unicorns, and they really are. So what I've had to do was not hire from visual effects companies or visual effects industry. I had to look towards the video games world, because the video game artists, they are tasked with creating optimized assets to work in real time. But also, one of the hardest things I've had to do was, how do you convince financiers to finance a project that has interactive elements? Film financiers are very traditional. They're legacy tradition. They want to know who's in it, what the tax incentives are, how they're going to make their return on investment. So when you mention Unreal Engine to a financier, they're like, I'm not interested. If you're going to make animation, do it the proper way, right? The other difficulties we found was style. There was a lot of problems with uncanny valley. Our first projects, you know, a lot of people didn't really like them. They go, oh, they look like a video game cinematic. And then you show it to a streamer or a buyer in the film market. They're like, where do we position this? Because animation is Simpsons and Ren and Stimpy or Castlevania. And then you have photoreal cinematics, which is a video game. Then you have film. So where do we position it? So we spent a lot of time finding the art direction. And again, technicalities was never the problem. We have amazing support online. I learned Unreal over a weekend. Check this out. YouTube. I know, right? Surprise. But YouTube, people are writing content for this stuff. Epic have got amazing forums. But the point is, people are committing knowledge online. So technicality was never the problem. It's always people and the art direction. Finding an art direction that doesn't look like a video game. Finding an art direction that is unique enough to say it's its own thing. So that's the difficulties we found. Well, you guys can I had my slide up there, but you guys can always reach out to me on my social medias. I'm totally around here all week. Come and nab me if you want to really get in the nitty-gritty. But thank you so much for listening, guys.